South Carolina. The name conjures images of sun-drenched beaches, graceful antebellum mansions, and fields of cotton swaying gently in the breeze. But beneath this picturesque veneer lies a state with a complex and often tumultuous past, one that has left an indelible mark on the American story and its evolution. From the very beginning, South Carolina has been a land of contrasts, a place where progress and tradition have often clashed and coexisted. Imagine standing on the windswept shores of Charleston Harbor, the salty air heavy with the scent of the sea and history. Here, centuries ago, European settlers first set foot on Carolina soil, drawn by the promise of a new life and opportunities. This bustling port city, with its cobblestone streets and pastel-colored houses, would become a center of trade and culture, a melting pot of different peoples and ideas from around the world. Travel inland, and the landscape transforms dramatically. Rolling hills give way to dense forests and fertile farmlands, a testament to the state's rich agricultural heritage. It was here, in the sprawling plantations of the Lowcountry, that indigo, rice, and cotton were cultivated, crops that brought immense wealth but also fueled the brutal system of slavery. Yet, amidst the reminders of a troubled past, there is a palpable sense of resilience and hope in South Carolina. From the bustling cities of Charleston, Columbia, and Greenville to the quiet charm of its small towns, the state is brimming with a vibrant energy. A blend of old and new that is uniquely its own, creating a rich tapestry. South Carolina's history is inextricably linked with the struggle for American independence. The journey of this colony towards revolution is a tale of resilience, determination, and a fierce desire for self-governance. Founded in 1663 as part of the Carolina colony, it was initially a land of promise and opportunity. The colony quickly developed a distinct identity, shaped by its unique geography, economy, and demographics. The lush landscapes and fertile lands attracted settlers who were eager to make a new life. Unlike other colonies which were largely populated by families seeking religious freedom or economic opportunity, South Carolina's settlers were different. It attracted a large number of young, single men seeking their fortunes in the New World. These men were driven by ambition and a desire for independence. This spirit of individualism and independence manifested itself in the colony's political life. The settlers were not content with merely surviving, they wanted to thrive and govern themselves. South Carolinians were among the most vocal opponents of British rule, chafing under the restrictions imposed by the Crown. They felt the heavy hand of British control in their daily lives. The Stamp Act of 1765, which levied taxes on printed materials, was met with fierce resistance. This act was seen as a direct affront to their autonomy. The imposition of the Stamp Act sparked protests and boycotts throughout the colony. South Carolinians organized and united in their opposition. As tensions with Britain escalated, South Carolina emerged as a hotbed of revolutionary fervor. The colony became a center of resistance and revolutionary activity. The Sons of Liberty, a secret society dedicated to opposing British rule, established a strong presence in the colony. They organized meetings and planned acts of defiance. When the First Continental Congress convened in Philadelphia in 1774, South Carolina sent delegates who were determined to secure independence. These delegates played a crucial role in the discussions and decisions. On June 28, 1776, a full 2 weeks before the signing of the Declaration of Independence, South Carolina took the bold step of declaring its own independence from Great Britain. This declaration was a significant moment in the colony's history. The document, known as the Declaration of the Representatives of the Colony of South Carolina, proclaimed the colony's right to self-government. The Declaration of the Representatives of the Colony of South Carolina was a bold assertion of their right to self-governance. It was a clear statement that they would no longer be subject to British rule. This declaration set the stage for a bloody conflict that would test the mettle of the fledgling nation. South Carolina would become a battleground in the fight for American independence, with its people showing remarkable courage and resilience. The battles fought on South Carolinian soil were pivotal in the overall struggle for independence. From the Siege of Charleston to the Battle of Cowpens, these conflicts were crucial in shaping the outcome of the war. South Carolina's leaders, both military and civilian, played vital roles in the Revolution. Figures like Francis Marion, known as the Swamp Fox, and Thomas Sumter, the Gamecock, became legendary for their guerrilla tactics and leadership. After the war, South Carolina faced the daunting task of rebuilding. The colony had been ravaged by conflict, but its people were determined to create a new, independent state. South Carolina's contributions to the new nation were significant. The state's leaders helped shape the early government and played a crucial role in the formation of the United States. Today, South Carolina's legacy as a cradle of American independence is remembered and celebrated. The state's journey to revolution is a testament to the enduring spirit of its people and their unwavering commitment to freedom. The antebellum period, spanning the late 18th century to the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861, was a time of both great prosperity and deep moral conflict for South Carolina. The state, like much of the South, experienced significant economic growth during this era. The state's economy, heavily reliant on agriculture, flourished thanks to the cultivation of cash crops like cotton, rice, and indigo. These crops were in high demand, both domestically and internationally, driving the economic engine of the region. Vast plantations, worked by enslaved Africans, dotted the low-country landscape, their owners amassing immense wealth and political power. These plantations were not just economic units but also social and political centers, where the elite gathered to discuss and influence the future of the state. This economic prosperity, however, came at a terrible human cost. The wealth and opulence enjoyed by the few were built on the backs of the many who suffered under the brutal system of slavery. The institution of slavery, deeply ingrained in Southern society, cast a long shadow over the state. It was a system that dehumanized and commodified people, treating them as property rather than human beings. Enslaved Africans, stripped of their freedom and dignity, endured unimaginable hardships, subjected to the whims of their masters. They faced grueling labor, physical punishment, and the constant threat of being separated from their families. The moral hypocrisy of a nation founded on the principles of liberty and equality, while simultaneously condoning the enslavement of an entire race, was not lost on many, both within South Carolina and beyond its borders. This contradiction sparked intense debates and fueled the growing abolitionist movement. As the nation grappled with the issue of slavery, South Carolina emerged as a staunch defender of the institution. The state's leaders were vocal in their support, arguing that slavery was essential to their way of life and economic prosperity. Politicians and intellectuals alike argued that slavery was not only economically necessary but also morally justified, citing biblical passages and arguing for the supposed inferiority of African Americans. These justifications were used to maintain the status quo and resist calls for abolition. Abolitionist movements, while gaining traction in the North, were met with fierce resistance in South Carolina, where the fear of economic ruin and social upheaval ran deep. The state's economy was so intertwined with slavery that many could not envision a future without it. This period of antebellum prosperity, built on the backs of enslaved people, would prove to be a prelude to a cataclysmic conflict that would tear the nation apart and leave an enduring legacy of pain and division. The Civil War would challenge the very foundations of the nation and force a reckoning with its original sin of slavery. The seeds of secession, sown in the fertile soil of economic self-interest and racial prejudice, were beginning to sprout. South Carolina would soon become the first state to secede from the Union, setting the stage for the bloody conflict that would follow. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 proved to be the tipping point for South Carolina and the South as a whole. His victory was seen as a direct threat to the Southern way of life, which was deeply intertwined with the institution of slavery. Lincoln's anti-slavery stance, though moderate, was seen as an existential threat by the Southern planter elite. They feared that his presidency would lead to the abolition of slavery, which was the cornerstone of their economic and social systems. On December 20th, 1860, just weeks after Lincoln's victory, South Carolina became the first state to secede from the Union, an act that would ignite the flames of civil war. This bold move was driven by a desire to preserve their way of life and maintain the institution of slavery. The first shots of the Civil War were fired at Fort Sumter, a federal garrison located in Charleston Harbor, on April 12, 1861. This marked the beginning of a conflict that would last for 4 long and bloody years. Confederate forces bombarded the fort for 34 hours before Union forces surrendered, marking the beginning of a brutal conflict that would claim the lives of over 600,000 Americans. The bombardment of Fort Sumter was a clear signal that the South was willing to fight to protect its interests. South Carolina played a pivotal role in the Confederacy, contributing soldiers and resources to the war effort. The state was a significant supplier of troops, and its citizens were deeply committed to the Confederate cause. The state witnessed some of the bloodiest battles of the conflict, including the sieges of Charleston and Vicksburg. These battles were marked by intense fighting and significant casualties on both sides. As the war dragged on, the human and economic toll on South Carolina became increasingly devastating. The state's infrastructure was severely damaged, and its economy was left in ruins. Plantations lay in ruins, cities were bombarded, and families were torn apart. The war left a lasting scar on the state, one that would take years to heal. Following the Confederate defeat in 1865, South Carolina entered a tumultuous period of Reconstruction. This era was marked by significant changes as the state struggled to rebuild and redefine itself in the aftermath of the war. The state was occupied by federal troops, and former slaves were granted citizenship and the right to vote. This was a monumental shift in the social and political landscape of South Carolina. Reconstruction brought about significant social and political changes, as African Americans sought to claim their rightful place in society. They began to participate in the political process, and for the first time, African American leaders emerged in the state. However, this period was also marked by violence, resistance from white Southerners, and the rise of Jim Crow laws that would disenfranchise African Americans for generations to come. The progress made during Reconstruction was met with fierce opposition, leading to a long and difficult struggle for civil rights.